Today we got one small project to do on the LS. Last week I replaced 4 spark plugs. No, not 4. I replaced the 8 spark plugs and all 8 coils. When I was getting to the driver's side, the last 2 coils, which the 2 closest to the firewall, which I just call, 3 and 4, I noticed that there was oil inside the tube to the spark plug. So I went in and kept going, knowing that I was probably going to have to come back and do this. So I got 2 new spark plugs to replace the 2 that had oil in it. Since I put new ones, I'm just going to go ahead and replace them and start over again. But I also bought a set of 8 of these tube seals. These go down into the tube that goes down to the spark plug, keeps the oil from backfilling into the tube and giving you an issue with some leaking down into the spark plug. So these guys, I'm going to replace. You see the part number there, I believe, the gasket spark plug tube. So like I said, 8. I'm only going to do the driver's side. The passenger sides were all fine. I'll hold on to the other 4 of these for the passenger side. Maybe someday I'll do the spark plugs again and need them, but we'll just hold on to those. If you buy the spark plug tubes, if you buy the gasket for the valve cover, you will generally get the tubes seals. So that's one way to do it, or you can just get the tubes by themselves. If you're looking for the tubes by themselves, I went to LexusPartsNow.com. I use them often enough because they do a decent job. If you order from them, you just want to make sure that you order enough stuff so that your shipping doesn't cost more than the stuff you're buying. But since the spark plugs were over there, I think they're about 15 a piece or so, which I know you can find cheaper. The tubes were right around almost $4 a piece. So they can sell them individually. So that came out to be for 8 tubes, right around $26, $27 or something like that. So that wasn't too bad. If you buy a gasket with the tubes, you're looking at probably, I don't know, 20 bucks or so. So it just depends on what you need. I don't need the valve cover gaskets. So starting to take apart that side. I've already disconnected the battery. Just got to remove the side panel. Took the air filter out. I'm just waiting a few more minutes. So I believe all we really need to do is remove, of course, the clamp holding the air cleaner box housing. Pull this off the intake part of it, because the air is coming in from the bottom. It shifts this way, comes back up and goes back down into the throttle body, or just mixes back in. So we got to take this side off to get to the spark plugs, because you can't really see them. They're hiding down underneath there. If you look to the far right, that little shiny spot there on the corner, that's one of the coils. Anyway, so I'm going to take this off next, and then we'll show you how to do the removal. Okay, we're taking off the air cleaner box. Now, as you can see better, you have the 4 plugs and the coils. You have the 10 millimeter holding down the coils there. The one that's tough to get is the one in the back. You just kind of got to get your hand back in there in order to get to that one. It takes a little bit more effort, but once you get that out, then everything else comes out pretty smooth. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the 4 tube seals on this side. So let me get these loosened up, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So on the number 1, so we've got the coil pulled out. You disconnect your pigtail. Now, because of this hitting the side of the strut tower, the ones down here you can pretty much pull straight out. But the thing is, you need to, on top of the old tube seal, which is this black part here, there's a little notch there. Now, if you just kind of work your screwdriver in there, you see it start to separate. And you can do it just a few times, just long enough to get it done and to break off of there and it to come off. And so when you stick your hand down there, you have this tube. So finish pulling it out all the way, and then there you go. So this is what you're after, is this guy right here. So let's back over here. Put it on the bench for a second. All right. So this is what you're after. So you pull this out. First you want to inspect that there's no oil on anything. So there's some oil there, but I think there may have been from leftover or something. That came off the tube. So if you notice how shiny the tube is, there's the oil that's behind it. So it probably, when I slid it off, my finger got on it. But feels pretty stiff rubber. It's got this one feels okay, but it wasn't leaking like the other ones. But so when you grab this, you want to be careful. This on the tube, this little top O-ring seal at the top here comes down, and then they have the little end of it comes off. There's a little spring inside there. You can buy from Denso the replacements of this and that, which I do have because I thought I was going to need them, but I didn't need them because the new coils all came with the stuff on it. So when I pull out the two going that are leaking, I may wind up replacing these if need be, just for putting some dry ones in. So we got to put one more of these on there to there, and then slide it back in, like I said. So we'll come back again in a few seconds. Okay, I got the spark plug out that goes into that one there. I just call that number 3, and then 4 is in the back. Replaced the tube. If you look on the end, you can still see some oil in there. Let me take it off. This magnetic spark plug remover tool, it's all from, I guess it's one piece, this part and this part, it's just on a little swivel. This is the best thing for it because it's magnetic. Once you grab it, once you break it free, you're twisting it until it finally comes out. And if you tug on it a little bit and it hasn't come out all the way, and then you won't, the magnetic won't come off. You'll just be able to tell that it's not completely out of the hole there with the threads once you get all that out of there. But so I can get my one hand on it. Okay, so there's that. Take this off. The magnetic still has to hold it. So you can still see the oil there on the new tube, on the new spark plug. So focus in on that a little better, make it a little better shot. So I'm going to replace them again. Like I said, I got new ones. One thing you might want to do, take a little shop rag, a towel, shove it down that hole. Because this hole just goes all the way down into the top of the cylinder where it hits the, the lifters and stuff in there, the chamber. I'm just trying to get this down there so I can see if there's any oil down at the bottom. If I were going to reuse this same spark plug, then it's a definite that you want to put anti-seize on there, because the anti-seize for new ones is coated onto thread, so you don't really need to put anti-seize on new spark plugs, unless you've got the ones that don't have the coating, and there's some out there. So I'm just trying to shove this in there a little bit. See if it pulls out anything. Oh, looks fine. So we'll put the new one on and move on to the last one and see if that's got oil. Okay, so real quickly, I got that one out. And once you get the gasket off of that, that's basically what you're looking at. Just probably a little 4-inch extension. I believe there's an extension on that. Yep, there's the socket, and then the extender that's on that, and then a little 4-inch one, I believe,
to get to this gap here. That's kind of what you're going to need to get to in order to remove and install the spark plugs. So we'll pull this one out and we'll see how much oil is on that one. Okay, got that one pulled out. So it's right here. You can see it's kind of burnt at the top, but it's got the oil. I can separate these two again. That magnetic really likes to hold on these guys. There you go. So we come down here. There we go. And see a little oil in the socket. So you know oil is getting down the tube to the top of the electrode there, and it comes down, coats it, gets by the washers down into the actual spark itself. So that's what you don't want to see. But like I said, I only saw that on those two sockets. The passenger side I said was dry. There is a real good series video that somebody put out less than a year ago on this. Kind of doing the same thing, except he's replacing the gasket on the valve cover. And if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend finding it, because it'll show you a lot about how to remove the valve cover gasket, how to disassemble and put back the fuel pump that's on each side. Looked like a real headache to me, but when you watch that video, shows the video on both sides. It makes it look real simple. You know, once you unplug stuff, and that's the thing, you gotta, remove the tubes and some power and some plug electric pigtails in there, and then this part up here, these orange parts snap off, and you pull those out and disconnect them from the hose. And then you got the clamp for the right here. You got a nut there, and then one going down here. This one and that one. He undoes those, twists them out of the way. I think he did put a stopper of some sort on the input of the fuel pump itself, because you don't want anything getting down in there while you have it off the vehicle and laying on the side somewhere. So he just put a little cover over it. And those, I think they're all 10 millimeters again. Comes out pretty easy. And he replaced them all. So if you haven't seen that video, I'd recommend you look it up. So, okay, we'll go ahead and put the tube back in and get it all closed back up. All right, that's the end. We've got them all put back in. Just remember that 10 millimeter bolt that holds the coil on. Make sure you got that really snugged up, because if it's not, then there's another way out, and oil can, push back up and get into that tube, because it's not seated down all the way tight enough. So because the top flange of the tube is on the outside, and then you have the inner ring that the coil uses. So that little 10 millimeter, make sure you get it on there good. Kind of go back over it again when you're done to see if there's a little bit more you can tighten down. I think you get it to where you think it's good, and then you should be fine. I'm not sure what the foot-pounds are. It's probably not too big, but you just want to make sure they're really nice and snug in there. So everything's put back together there. Just got to put the air box back in, and those are held down by two 10 millimeter washer bolts that hold that down to there. And then you clamp, and then your tube, and then hook the battery back up. So that's pretty much it for this one. Just kind of wanted to show that, especially if you're thinking of changing your spark plugs. Depending on how many miles, I would recommend the tube seals for sure, because they might get pretty old and dried up and might start leaking on you. If the valve cover gasket's good and you don't see any leaks around your gaskets, then I would just get the tubes. The coil packs, I replaced all 8 of those. They're about 50-some bucks a piece, so kind of keep that in mind if you're going to do all 8. Most people say they should last the life of the vehicle, and they probably could, but some people say 100,000 miles is about your expectancy out of them. But so when I replaced it a week ago, I noticed a couple things. Of course, at first, that oil that was left over in that cylinder having to burn off, so I blew out smoke for a few seconds. But over the week, after it's been running, it set in a little bit. I did notice that it seemed to run a little bit smoother at idle. I didn't really notice that little shudder that you get when you're down just at 500 RPM or just a little bit below at a stoplight or something, that you get that little bit of shudder in your vehicle. So hopefully this will solve that oil leak. Probably just gotta let it sit like that. I'm not worried about the spark plugs anymore, unless I keep this car another 100,000 miles. But I don't think I'll keep them. By then it'll be 260,000, and maybe trying to get something else by then. But this has still been a good vehicle, and just, you know, minor maintenance things like this and suspension stuff especially. I did all that stuff recently. So that's about it for this one, and we'll see you at the next one. Thanks.